I love everything about LeBron's pep talk last night. Words to live by. Luka, by the way, smiling through it all. Can't believe this is his life. Speaking of smiling through it all, your Super Bowl picks. You all had Kansas City. Smile through some mutes. Let's go around the horn. The pregame pep talk and this play here. Luka cheesing when he sees LeBron down court and the way he finishes. There's a lot to love about Doncic's Los Angeles debut, his first game in 7 weeks. He had 14, 5, and 4 in 24 minutes and the easy win over Utah. Lakers already surging and now jumped Houston for the 4th seed. Clinton Yates, you are there. How big of a deal was last night, the Luka debut and win?
It was a monster deal. And before we even get to what happened on the court, let's talk about what this Lakers franchise did, which they do better than any other team, arguably, in sports in North America, which is celebrate and commemorate their stars. Trying to make Luka feel welcome in a scenario in which he's coming into a building that has so many legends, huge deal. The jersey giveaway, actually important thing. People were there an hour early to see him do trick shots and throw the ball up off the daggone shot clock and make it. And in introductions, LeBron let him go last just so he could have a moment, something Luka actually asked for, which I thought was a cool thing in terms of how these two guys are integrating themselves. On the court, though, to see them play together, I thought was really exciting. You almost forgot, in some ways, how fun it is to watch Luka play because of the vision and everything he does, and managed to get Jackson Hayes involved, a guy who everybody's looking at as kind of the odd man out, as the only center on the team, who was 5 for 5 from the floor with 4 lobs, which is Luka's favorite play. This was an A+ from the Lakers last night, and for a random February Monday game against the Jazz, woo,
I think you shorted Jackson Hayes one shot, 6 of 6 with the 5 lobs. David
My
Dennis
bad.
Jr.,
Yeah.
around the horn to you.
Yeah, I think we should pinpoint a little bit more of the last part of what Clinton Yates just said, which is they played the Utah Jazz. So we got to take all of this with a little bit of grain of salt. They're going to look great against that Utah Jazz team whose front office is more interested in losing games than winning games.
Okay.
But what we did see on the court in this small sample size are some sustainable things. We saw Austin Reeves able to play without the ball, without being the major ball handler, scoring 22 points. We saw that LeBron and Luka can share the ball. All this stuff about one basketball, all that was always nonsense to me. They play with ball handlers this entire time. As Clinton said, they were getting Jackson Hayes involved. Luka, of course, the legs weren't there yet. He was shorting those threes. But once that conditioning comes back and you get back to some of the Luka that we had pre-injury 7 weeks ago, this team offensively seems like it can't be hitting on all cylinders.
But still, David, sounds like you're leaning to call last night just one game. I'll ask you, Justin Tinsley, just one game or something more?
It's something more from an emotional standpoint, and that's what really matters here. If you're a Lakers fan, if you're a Lakers player, honestly, if you're Luka Doncic, you're happy that last night happened. It's like, okay, cool. This is the trade that rocks sports. This is the trade that made the Super Bowl take somewhat of a back seat last week, and that's how big it was. And now you're Luka. You finally got this out the way. You're in your new setting. You're in your new reality. This is his first game since Christmas. Like you said, 7 weeks. 7 weeks ago, none of us saw Luka being a Laker, not even Luka himself. But again, yes, it's Utah. You can't get too hype on this, but one thing that I like in last night's game was the fact that when Luka was on the floor, all of his other teammates shot 68%. All of his teammates are between Luka and LeBron. They're about to get so many people, so many wide open shots. Yes, there are still concerns on the defensive end, but offensively, they're going to be one of the funnest teams in the league to watch.
And Pablo Torre.
Yeah, this is gravy. The trade for Luka was not made for this game. It wasn't even made for this season. If you told the Lakers you can get Luka Doncic, you got to punt on this season, I think they would have done it. But the crazy part about the Lakers, Tony, is that as of mid-January, that team was being outscored by about 100 points, 101, I believe. Since then, they're 12-2, the best record in the league. They have a point differential that is way more than simply just almost positive. It's a remarkable thing that they might be on a run while getting the guy who was there, as Clinton was alluding to, for that next generation, next decade kind of a thing, which the Lakers always end up getting. So the fact that they can do both at the same time, that's why you should be mad at the Lakers. They might get something out of this season, a deep playoff run, and it's not just because the Jazz are easy to beat. It's because Luka and LeBron, of course, you want to start your poker game with those two
Can
players.
I ask
no matter
another
what else is
question,
around
Clinton Yates? You're talking about the teammates around, everybody's going to get better. One in particular, people are studying the body language of Dalton Connect, because the trade for Mark Williams that was rescinded is still floating somewhere in the ether here. But to see him around the team right now, is there something going on?
Well, yeah, what's going on is you got to be a professional and be a big boy and show up and grow up and do your job. He's still a guy that can knock down shots from the outside. He's still a guy that can dunk on your head in transition. You want to be on the team, play basketball. I understand there are feelings, but now's not the time for that. You're a pro.
David Dennis Jr., you have a view of it?
Yeah, I mean, Dalton Connect will find himself working back into that team, but the Mark Williams part of this is huge. As mentioned, the Lakers have Jackson Hayes, and that is it. They're going to have to get a center off of free agency who is not going to give them
buyout,
that type of defensive rebounding that they wanted, or buyout that they wanted this season, and they're in deep trouble when it comes to size for that
I
team.
will say this about Connect. I remember back a million years ago, you young millennials may not remember this, but the name Robert Horry is one you do remember, right? Robert Horry had great success in the playoffs with Houston specifically. He was traded by Houston before all that success with the Rockets in the finals, and that trade was rescinded. He was able to center that and turn out a phenomenal career, of course, but also success
Great
with
example.
Houston. We'll move on. Lakers loving life right now. Dallas Mavericks, not so much. Anthony Davis out for an undetermined amount of time. That was a huge blow this weekend. But also last night specifically, an overtime heartbreaking loss to Sacramento at home. Let's talk about the big screen in the arena capturing that fan mouthing "Fire Nico." They were, with another fan, ejected from the game when these signs were seen. There was also another ejection of two other fans after a shouting exchange with Mark Cuban. Nico Harrison was at the game but not seated with the public. Governor Patrick Dumont was courtside and was booed. After the game, Mavericks announced Jason Kidd was not available for post-game presser. David, where is this going, and what is going most wrong for Dallas right now?
This is going to more volatility, and it's going most wrong from a Dallas Mavericks organization that's not showing much empathy and not showing much way to quell these sort of things. I don't see what these players did that rose to the level of getting them kicked out of games. They're passionate about the fact that the star player they thought they were going to have for the next decade got shipped off in the middle of the night, and they all feel backstabbed by it. Of course, okay, he held a sign that says "Fire Nico." Take the sign. Don't kick the guy out for doing that. Players are going to heckle. Players are going to be upset, and you got to give them that space to do that within reason. Somebody crosses lines, somebody does stuff that is really, worth getting them kicked out for, then you do it. But I didn't see anything last night that rose to the level of where you start ejecting fans or having righteous anger over what you did to their star player.
Justin Tinsley, how'd you see it?
It's such a slippery slope because we know fans cross the line all the time. We know plenty of examples of this. But again, a "Fire Nico" sign, that doesn't warrant you getting kicked out of the game, as David said. And on the front office, you need to provide a little bit more transparency about why you traded your team's best player, because that's why the fan base is protesting outside the arena. That's why they're bringing these signs into the game. That's why there's so much negative energy in that arena right now. And honestly, the ones who suffer the most are the players on the court, the Kyries, the PJ Washingtons, the Klay Thompson, because they have to deal with this zaniness while trying to play basketball, while trying to fight for a playoff spot. And it doesn't help that the guy that they got in the trade, Anthony Davis, is now going to be out for several weeks. So, look, at some point, the Mavs fan base, the Mavs front office, the Mavs as a team, Luka's gone. He's not coming back. Focus on what you can focus on right now, and that's trying to make the playoffs.
Right, but you'd say there needs to be more transparency. Nico Harrison did have a press conference. He took questions. He was there. He explained it. People didn't like the answer.
And it became a smear campaign.
But he was certainly making his case. Pablo Torre, around the horn to you.
Yeah, I want to put some more focus on who actually is in power in Dallas. It's not Nico Harrison, and it's not Mark Cuban, who was getting heckled, by the way, separately, and seemed to have another fan kicked out. There's a cell phone video of that floating around. The owners of the team are the Adelson family, specifically Miriam Adelson's son-in-law, Patrick Dumont. So when it comes to firing anybody, getting mad at anybody, I would just advise the Dallas Mavericks fans to be more targeted. Talk about the people who have the power to make a trade like this happen, for whom, by the way, this trade was something worth defending. Patrick Dumont talked to the Dallas Morning News a couple of days ago, Tony, making the case as to why Luka was a bad culture fit. There are character concerns, all of that. Which is to say that I get major New York Knicks vibes in the worst ways from that arena. Because I know what happens, right? Okay, the fans realize we're very angry. Maybe it's the owners we should be blaming. I've seen owners in the NBA kick out not just fans, but also former players, right? This is Jim Dolan territory we're in. We're talking about security guards kicking people out of games for dissent. I don't like it. The whole point of being a fan is that you care deeply about the product, and this is how you treat them. It's bad all the way around.
And Clinton Yates, your view of it.
Yeah, this has moved from bad to worse to villainous and craven. And that's kind of what I'm so confused about. To use a millennial term, this would not qualify as standing on business as far as I'm concerned. If you want to ship the guy out and give everybody a good reason, just wear it. You know your fans are going to be upset. You know people are going to voice their opinions. At least if you allow them to vocalize their feelings, they're not going to think that you were specifically trying to undercut them. And that's why this is so ridiculous. This is the kind of thing that were I a season ticket holder, I would be asking for a refund writ large. If you're doing this to other people, never mind just the move. That's why it's so weird to me. It seems like you are actively trying to undercut interest in your team based on people who genuinely care. That is never a smart strategy whatsoever, and it seems to be the lone one they're employing. Very weird stuff.
Your thoughts on this, gentlemen? We'll take a break here. This is our most millennial panel. I didn't know what you said there, Clinton, because I am from a generation that doesn't even have a name. I'm a unicorn myself. But yeah, sure. Go with your millennial slang. Taking a break. Buy or sell next.
My.
17.
NFL news of the day. The New Orleans Saints have a head coach. Kellen Moore did not have to leave New Orleans. I'm sure that job interview was fun. Sir, you smell like champagne. Yup. And yesterday's price is not today's price. Kellen Moore has a ring, and now he has the head coaching job. Had a panelist yesterday argue the OC of the Eagles is a better job than head coach of the Saints. It's certainly not paid more, so let's see. Clinton Yates, around the horn to you. Is this a bigger game for the Saints or loss for the Eagles?
Loss for the Eagles, but I'm not that far off from that mindset. We saw Cliff Kingsbury, who turned down interviews with this team to stay with the team that, the Eagles dump trucked on the way to the Super Bowl. So if the head coach himself says, I want you to stay and I need you to stay, yes, I'm going to believe it's a bigger loss.
Okay,
for
so
the
you
Eagles
would argue
than
he'd be better served staying with Philadelphia. David Dennis Jr., how about you?
Yeah.
This is a bigger game for the New Orleans Saints. They're in salary cap hell and can't really do much to improve that roster. So the best thing you can do is get a coach in who can maximize the best of what those weapons that they have there, which they do have weapons. Alvin Kamara and those sort of guys can be having explosive offense. It's up to Moore to figure out how to make that work. But really, this is the only option for the Saints to improve their prospects this season.
Justin Sinsley.
Yeah, it's the bigger game for the Saints. In 6 seasons as offensive coordinator, Kellen Moore had a top 10 offense in yards and points 3 times. And I didn't know this until I looked it up. Last season, from week 3 to the end of the season, only the Cleveland Browns scored less points than the New Orleans Saints. So, yeah, they need a lot of help on the offensive side of the ball. So why not go get the offensive coordinator from the Super Bowl champion?
Pablo Torre, around the horn to you.
A way bigger win for the Saints, specifically because people were saying no to that job, number one. But number two, Tony, the number one lesson I learned from that Eagles run to the Super Bowl is that it's the players and the front office from the ground up that has enabled that run. It's the trenches. Kellen Moore is a fantastic offensive whiz kid. But the fact that the trenches are built the way they are, I think the Eagles are going to be just fine without Kellen Moore next season.
Buy or sell two, a headline from the weekend in the NBA. That surprised some. Joel Embiid could be headed for another surgery. This came out of nowhere. It also came out of everywhere, if you're being honest. 16 games played this season, 36 games missed for Embiid. This would be his 6th major procedure. Last week, Daryl Morey said after the trade deadline, the franchise's future is still built around Embiid, and they think of him still as a top 5 player in the league. So there were no regrets about the extension they gave him this past summer or any trade ideas at the past deadline. Pablo, how should or can the Sixers play this with Embiid?
There's not a lot to do here, Tony. I wish there was more to do when the guy's ceiling is literally best player in the league, but the floor is he doesn't touch the floor. That's a real set of golden handcuffs that you've opted into. I remember talking to Sam Hinkie, of course, the guy who drafted Joel Embiid, and his whole philosophy was, do you remember what it took to get him? The entire point of sports is to get a guy like Joel Embiid and to hold on to him. And so even though it's bleak, even though I'm trapped watching the same television season year after year in which the guy is hurt and tired and is winning a gold medal, great, and then predictably needs another surgery, less good, you got to hold on to him. No one values him the way the Sixers can and should and will, and so they're stuck.
Tinsley?
They're stuck.
Yeah, you can't trade him because you'll never get the proper return for him. So maybe after the All-Star break, you really just have to have a come-to-God moment. Like, look, we're going to sit you for the rest of the season. Get surgery as early as you can. And let's start this recovery process now because you can't trade the guy. And this is the situation you find yourself in. If you're Philly, it's definitely unenviable, but you can't trade the guy because he is one of the best players in the league. He just can't stay on the floor.
David Dennis Jr.
Yep, they're stuck with the guy, and there are worse places to be than stuck with the guy who has an MVP under his belt and could have another one if he gets healthy. Now, the question is, what do they do for the rest of the season? I would shut it down, try to maximize my draft prospects, and see about what I could do with Paul George in the offseasons. There are things you can do around this team because they do have a mechanism for success going forward, but it all revolves around how you manage the injuries and, this surgery with Joel Embiid.
Glenn Yates.
Yeah, I think you shut him down, and I think you take a page from the anti-Mavericks book and you let your fan base know that you're committed to your star who has committed himself to you guys. I mean, the injury situation is what it is. You named all those surgeries. That's difficult, but there's no point in bailing on the guy right now because of what everybody else said. He's just too good to say we're cutting bait with this after all these years.
$190 million over the next 3 years is owed to him. Pablo, would you shut him down right now, too? I didn't get your answer on that.
Yeah, I would.
You can't repeat last year,
I would
right?
be realistic.
Because he had the surgery about this time last year.
We know how it's going to go in the postseason.
It was tough watching
like
that postseason if we think back on it.
And
working through the knee, working through a head, working through an eye, and a Bell's palsy. I mean, that was
to watch.
Fire Cell 3.
Yeah.
Back to the court last night. Golden State 125, Milwaukee 111. The Dubs 2-0 since Jimmy Butler's acquisition. He had 29-6 last night. Steph Curry said every position feels a bit easier. Steve Kerr says the goal is the 6th seed, so they're not in the play-in. David, how realistic is that?
The 6th seed is very realistic. First of all, look at the teams ahead of them. The Mavericks and the Kings should fall off a little bit, but there's some sustainable stuff that I've seen with Jimmy Butler. The off-ball movement is great. He's getting to the free throw line. He has more free throw attempts than field goal attempts so far, and he makes shots easier for Stephen Curry, who is in the middle of a 4-game streak of 30 more points that hasn't done since 2021. So there's some stuff there that's percolating that looks really good for this Warriors team.
Sins?
Yeah, they've got 29 games left, and they have the third easiest schedule in the West, and they're only 2.5 games back of the 6th seed. So yes, that is absolutely possible, and I love the physicality, the cocky physicality that Jimmy Butler brings to this team, and you can tell it bleeds through Steph because he loves it too.
Pablo?
It's a great honeymoon period. Some stuff will be messy down the road, but as long as they get to the postseason, and the Warriors are always the team that no one wants to play because, David Dennis Jr.'s former beer pong teammate, Steph Curry's still on the team. Happy Steph, happy life. Yes.
Yates.
Yeah, I agree. If Wardell's going to say the offense doesn't feel as hard, that's the best thing you could possibly get. And also, Kuminga coming back after the All-Star break. Big addition. If it's time to make a move, the time is now.
Time to make a move right now. David Dennis Jr., Pablo Torre, thank you. That's the move. Tinsley, Yates, showdown next. Unrivaled one-on-one debuted last night. This is our first look at pros in a one-on-one tournament, and what we saw is anything goes. It's winners out, so you can go on a run, and that means there's a chance for shocking upsets. And what we're showing you right here is case in point. Number 1 seed Brianna Stewart shut out by Aaliyah Edwards 12-0. And number 2 seed Chelsea Gray also lost. So I want to ask if a star like Stewie losing 12-0 makes this more fun or less, and your takeaway from the first one-on-one tournament in general. Clinton Yates, around the one to you.
It's not more fun for Stewie getting popped 12-zap in under 2 minutes. There are panelists on this show that can barely get out a cogent argument in that kind of time. She's out here losing one-on-one tournaments in front of the world.
Under 2 minutes is amazing.
Nah. Let the women lead. I love this concept. Matter of fact, this is way more entertaining than whatever they came up with for the NBA All-Star game this year. This needs to be the format. This is incredible.
I mean, this is great. It's not great for Stewart. You're 100% right. But it's great that she recognizes and everyone recognizes you can take an L in one-on-one and you can move on and live another day. It's all right to lose, and it was pretty great to see it. A minute and a half. We'll move on. A report that came out of this weekend. The New York Jets are likely to move on from Aaron Rodgers. Yeah, we know. Justin, who takes a chance on Aaron Rodgers?
I can't believe I'm about to say this, but I'm going with the Raiders. They're not going to be able to get one in the draft, so you might as well get a guy who can raise your floor a little bit.
Glenn Yates?
I hope nobody. I hope a local library system picks him up. Read more books. Do less talking, please. I know that he tried it. He tried it with the Jets. It didn't work. Enough already. It's okay. You're a great player.
Hard for any of us on this show to advise someone to do less talking. We'll take a Justin Tinsley FaceTime.
So this past weekend, I was in New Orleans with my brother David Dennis. We were there for the Super Bowl, covering Kendrick Lamar's halftime concert. But you know, sometimes you go to a lot of events, you go to parties, and you meet people. Well, I met my new best friend down in New Orleans. Happens to be John Hamm. That's right, the John Hamm. We talked about sports, we took a selfie together, and I'm actually about to send him a text right now to see if he saw this, because that's the new homie. John, what's up, baby?
Was there an
There was
exchange
a time
of
when
money?
shameless
And if there was,
self-promotion.
that's what the money's for, Tinsley. There you go.
Hey,
I don't
he
see
loved the
Shameless
show, baby.
self-promotion.
It's so
See you guys
sad.
tomorrow. Around
Come
the world.
on.